Good evening. Welcome in Daily UPSC editorial audio program. Well done, class. The Times of India. Red Sea stake and a rule-based order. The Economic Times. Devouring Donald. The Hindu. Now the full editorial. Well done, class. The Times of India. Falling dropout ratio at secondary level are a big positive. Kids will stay in school if job market improves. Educationists believe the age group 15 to 16 is the one that is most at risk of dropping out of school. Therefore, the trend in the dropout ratio after class 10th in India or secondary level is an important indicator. Recent data on secondary level dropout suggests we may be on the cusp of change. Good news: fewer dropouts. Government of India presented data this week in the Lok Sabha on a 4-year trend on dropouts in class 10 in both absolute numbers and in the ratio of dropouts. There has been a marked improvement in 2021-20 uh, 21-22. The national dropout ratio, which was 28.4 in 2018-19 and had fallen to 20.6 in 2021-22. Some things changing. Data shows that dropout ratio rates in some states, which traditionally had a ratio above the national average, collapsed in 2021-22. Tripura presented the most striking example, with the dropout ratio falling from 26.9 in 2020 to 21 into 3.8 the next year. There was a similar pattern in MP, Assam, and Gujarat. But news should be better. The World Bank's cross-country data on lower secondary schooling shows that India trails OECD countries or even Sri Lanka. In India, 49.8% of the population had completed lower secondary, while it was between 82.95 to Sri Lanka and OECD countries. Employment dimension. The duration of education is influenced by the returns to it in the job market. Government of India's employment data suggests that the job market may not be providing a strong enough incentive to persist. For example, the unemployment rate is highest among those who are more educated. In 2022-23, the overall employment rate was 3.2% for those whose educational attainment was at least secondary schooling. The unemployment rate was 7.3%. So the key to keeping more kids in secondary education is to improve their chances of finding a regular job. Red Sea Shark and a rule-based order. The Economic Times. On Wednesday, the U.S. announced Operation Prosperity Guardian, a 10-nation international coalition against Iran-backed Houthi attack on global maritime trade in the Red Sea. The Red Sea services the Suez Canal, which accounts for 15% of the east-west trade, 30% of container movement, and 10% of global oil trade. India's trade via this route is more than 2200 billion and is also a conduit of Russian oil. India has deployed the INS Kochi and INS Kolkata off the coast of Aden as part of maritime security and anti-piracy operations. The scourge must be removed. The Houthi attack ostensibly to prevent shipment to Israel are part of border effort to disrupt the existing rules-based world order. The Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and the ensuing war, the Hamas terror attack on Israel on October 7, which sparked the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza, and China's aggression in the Indo-Pacific are testing the international rule-based order. The defense of the global order focused and adjustment on the possibility of a multipolar world, which too depends on rule-based order. There is a re-emergence of a coalition-based bipolar world with smaller global, regional, aspiring, and emerging players working with dominant powers. The year ahead will be critical, with a deeply polarized US and strong isolationist tendencies heading into an election. India and the UAE will be electing a new government and parliament respectively in the summer. Much will depend on what these elections throw up. Yet there is no doubt that the multilateral system is facing its biggest test, and it is impinging on the political economy. Getting through this moment of crisis with minimum damage will require everything that diplomacy and defense can offer. Debarring Donald the Hindu, the US seems set for a bitter polarization in an election year. The Supreme Court of the U.S. state of Colorado has barred former President Donald Trump from running for office again in the 2024 presidential election on the ground that he violated a constitutional clause relating to engaging in an insurrection or rebellion. The court found in a 4-3 split decision that Mr. Trump was not eligible to be on the election ballot next year in Colorado for the role that he played in engaging on uh, protesters on January 6, 2021, a section of whom then went on to attack the building of the US Capitol in Washington. The ruling sets a historical precedent for the use of Section 3 of the country's 14th Amendment to strike a presidential candidate off the ballot. In this case, the most popular Republican candidate by a significant margin and seen as highly likely to win the election. Under the section, the insurrection clause, any person engaging in insurrection or rebellion against the U.S. Constitution shall not be permitted to run for public office, including Congress, the military, or and federal and state offices. The 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868, was established in part to disallow former Confederates from entering Congress and grabbing power from a government that they had previously fought. It is ironic that a similar post-Civil War logic might apply to Mr. Trump now, for his role in seeking to block the peaceful transfer of power to presidential incumbent Joe Biden on unproven allegations of election fraud linked to ballot voting. The Colorado ruling overturned an earlier district court verdict that declined to block Mr. Trump from contesting on the ground that it was unclear whether the 14th Amendment covered the presidency. Regardless of whether the inevitable appeal that this legal team will succeed, and regardless of whether his inability to compete in Colorado will impair his overall prospects next year, this ruling marks the bitter polarization of the U.S. electorate around the controversial policy stances that Mr. Trump represents. On the one hand, it is his very rejection of political propriety in that had led to the democracy threatening situation of a president who came close to refusing to demit office after an election loss. When combined with the hateful partisan de- demagoguery of previous Trump campaign, this calculated stubbornness represents the political outlook of MAGA Republicans, a worldview that has little in common with the value that mainstream conservatives and liberals hold dear. This body is ill for the quality and tenor of democratic discourse ahead, rising the likelihood that leaders on both sides will be talking past each other instead of reaching out to build bridges for bipartisan cooperation in short supply at the current juncture. Thank you.